What's up, guys? Welcome to the line change. In this video, we're going to do something a little bit different. In this video, as you can tell by the title, we're going to be talking about teams that should have won the Stanley Cup but didn't. Now, let me just go ahead and say right off the bat, these are not my takes. We're going to go over an article that discusses this. By no means am I saying that these teams in particular, but these were just the teams that were picked. And yes, there is some omissions from this list that I might include, but I just wanted to get that off the bat right away. So just so some people aren't, unhappy about it or disagree with it, that is your right to do so. But these are not my takes or the teams that I believe should have won the cup but didn't. Now, I know what you must be thinking. Why are you doing this? Is this Canucks related? Well, believe it or not, the Canucks are on this list. So that is why we're doing this. And I just thought it was a very interesting article and discussion. But before we dive into that, I want to thank my sponsor, Gassy Jack Art, maker of that incredible artwork you see right there. You guys can check them out at GassyJackArt.com. You can also find them on Instagram at GassyJackArt. So let's go ahead and dive right into this topic. I will leave a link to the article in the description down below so you guys can check it out yourselves. But this comes to us from the Daily Face-Off. And as we said, it talks about teams that should have won the Stanley Cup but didn't. So it starts off like so. In the words of the great Minnesotan indie rocker Paul Westerberg, opportunity knocks once, then the door slams shut. In the doldrums of summer, fans of the Edmonton Oilers have nothing to do but wonder if their opportunity really is gone and watch their CFL team lose. I don't know what the point is behind that. So Oilers fans, please do not be mad at me. I'm just simply reading what is written here. It is exceedingly difficult to find the right mix of talent, defense, and guts to reach the Stanley Cup final, a feat that Edmonton achieved during each of the past two postseasons. Without a ring to show for it, thanks to the rival Florida Panthers, all they got for their troubles was 2 years closer to the end of Connor McDavid's contract, which runs out next summer. Despair won't set in for Oilers fans until they're certain the window is closed, that McDavid is leaving, or both, but it can be difficult to see the writing on the wall before it's too late. Countless teams with strong, sustained runs near the top have convinced themselves next year will be the one, only to find out that last year was the one, and they missed it. I poured through the post-expansion NHL history to identify 4 era-specific teams that had the talent and the opportunity to win the Stanley Cup but couldn't get over the hump, to find out why they could have won when they should have and why they didn't in one list of great teams you won't be eager to see your favorite club join. Now, this article is written by Anthony Trudeau from Daily Face-Off. So again, this is not me ranking these teams or picking these teams. So once again, just making that clear. First up, we have the New York Rangers from 1971 to 1975. And this is why they should have won. Coming off consecutive 109-point seasons and a 6-game loss to Bobby Orr's Bruins in the 1972 Cup Final, the Blue Shirts boasted veteran standouts like classy center Jean Rattel, if I mispronounced that, I apologize, and lethal sniper Rod Gilbert, as well as up-and-coming stars like all-world D-man Brad Park and two-way pivot Walt Tkachuk. Backstopped by Eddie Giacomin and led by Emile Francis behind the bench, the Rangers were one of just 4 elite teams in a top-heavy league. In the summer of 1972, 3 of those teams lost key men to the upstart WHA. Boston could not match Cleveland's offer for playoff hero Jerry Cheevers. The Chicago Blackhawks watched Bobby Hull literally accept a giant check to play in Winnipeg, and Montreal Canadiens star puck mover J.C. Tremblay became the inaugural captain of their eventual rivals, the Quebec Nordiques. The Rangers spent freely on extensions to avoid an exodus of their own and seemed destined to conquer the NHL within the next few seasons. Now let's take a look at why they didn't. After Falling short to the high-flying Bruins and gritty Hawks in the early part of the 1970s, the Rangers then fell prey to a pair of emerging superpowers. In 1974 and 1975, they lost winner-takes-all games to rival Philadelphia Flyers and New York Islanders, respectively. The following season, Francis, who doubled as GM and was frustrated by his inability to cash in on the already waning distractions of the WHA, swung a desperate trade that sent Park and Rattel to Boston for Carol Vadnais and an aging Phil Esposito. He was fired shortly thereafter. Espo was better than you remember on Broadway, averaging over 35 goals per 82 games, but his stint as captain was a dud. New York would miss the postseason entirely in Esposito's first two seasons before Swedish imports Ulf Nilsson and Anders Hedberg helped him fire the Rangers to a Trivia Question Cup berth in '79. Still, their best chance at winning it all left town with Park and Rattel, both of whom enjoyed brilliant second acts in Boston. Let's take a look at their biggest miss. Just months after shrewdly insulating himself from the fallout of the WHL's formation, Francis's plan for world domination was already looking like a charm. Esposito, then the joint talisman of Boston's irresistible attack, went down with a serious knee injury 2 games into a first-round Stanley Cup rematch. The Blue Shirts proceeded to overwhelm Orr with their forecheck as Tkachuk and Calder winner Steve Vickers combined to fire 9 goals past Cheevers' old partner Eddie Johnson and a 44-year-old Jacques Plante. Perhaps Park and Gilbert were too preoccupied imagining their names being etched onto the cup after trouncing the Bees in 5 to remember they still had another 2 series to win. The Rangers were badly unprepared for what came next. In the semifinal round against the Blackhawks, Dennis Hull torched New York for 5 goals and 10 points, while Tony Esposito held the Rangers to 10 goals total. The five-game stand was never close, and the Stars wouldn't align for the Rangers for another 21 years. Next up, we have the Philadelphia Flyers from 1995 to 1998. My wife is not going to like this one, so hopefully she does not watch this. Let's take a look at why they should have won. After missing out on a major upset of the almighty Oilers in Game 7 of the 1987 Stanley Cup Final and losing to the Canadiens in the 1989 Conference Final, the Philadelphia Flyers quickly fell apart. By the summer of 1992, the Flyers had shipped off Brian Propp, Dave Poulin, and Rick Tocchet, among others. The only notable return pieces were explosive winger Mark Recchi, acquired from Pittsburgh for Tocchet, and a young power forward named Rod Brind'Amour, acquired from St. Louis for Ron Sutter. Amid an unprecedented playoff drought, the Flyers still needed more firepower, so they went and got some heavy ordnance at the 1992 NHL entry draft. The Orange and Black paid a king's ransom to the Nordiques for their unsigned number 1 pick from 1991, Eric Lindros, who arrived in Philly with unparalleled and wholly justified hype. The Flyers were back in the postseason within 3 years after team legend Bobby Clarke took the helm as GM for the second time in 1994 and traded Recchi for future 50-goal winger John LeClair and roving defenseman Eric Desjardins. Their core complete, Lindros, Brind'Amour, LeClair, and Swedish sniper Michael Renberg gave the Flyers the biggest, baddest, and best top 6 in the NHL. Let's take a look at why they didn't. The Flyers picked a bad time for their ascendancy, losing their deepest playoff runs to a couple of signature teams from the turn of the century, the 1995 New Jersey Devils and the 1997 Detroit Red Wings. Both found ways to neutralize Lindros by his standards at least, and exploit the Flyers' so-so depth on their way to the Cup. Philadelphia's goaltending wasn't much help either, matching up an aging, temperamental Ron Hextall and his assorted platoonmates against an Eastern Conference murderers row featuring Martin Brodeur, Dominik Hasek, and Curtis Joseph was something like bringing a water balloon to a gunfight. Let's take a look at their biggest miss. No one could blame the Flyboys for their 4-game dismantling at the hands of the Detroit Red Wings in 1997. That the Flyers were ever favored against the Wings, who boasted 8 future Hall of Famers, speaks to their imposing reputation during the late 1990s. Philadelphia's true misfires bumpered their lone Cup appearance of the Lindros era. Getting goalied by John Van Beesbrook in 1996 was bad enough, but Clark's attempts to secure a rematch with Detroit in 1998 were almost comically misguided. His new coaching hire, Bruins legend Wayne Cashman, was demoted after 61 games in favor of Roger Nielsen. His big RFA signing, Chris Gratton, was a dud who would end up back in Tampa within 14 months. A chaotic season ended quietly as Hasek and the Buffalo Sabres stifled Philly in 5 games. Lindros and Clark would fall out in a protracted saga over the next 3 years, and the Flyers stumbled into 2 decades of mediocrity, and infinite what-ifs after the end of the Big E's brief, brilliant run at the top. Next up, we have the Vancouver Canucks from 2009 to 2012. Let's take a look at why they should have won. Mark Crawford, Marcus Naslund, and the West Coast Express era of early 2000s Canucks hockey are a case study in how rarely fun hockey and winning hockey intersect. The goals flowed freely, but Vancouver's wide-open style and bad goaltending were a lethal mix in the postseason. Crawford got the axe after a pedestrian 2005-2006 campaign, and new bench boss Alain Vigneault made it his mission to mold the free-scoring Canucks into an elite defensive group. AV got a big head start that same offseason when Naslund's buddy Todd Bertuzzi was dealt for Roberto Luongo. Naslund followed Crawford and Bertuzzi out the door before long, and Vigneault rebuilt his leadership group around superstar goalie Luongo, the already established Sedin twins, and future Selke winner Ryan Kesler. By 2010-2011, that core was supported by perhaps the deepest blue line of the Cap era: Kevin Bieksa, Alex Edler, Christian Ehrhoff, Dan Hamhuis, and Sami Salo. The results were predictably dominant, with a first-place offense, first-place defense, and first-place team. The Canucks marched on toward their championship destiny. Let's take a look at why they didn't. And Canuck fans are not going to like this one. This is going to be difficult for me to even read. Would it be too cute to type Tim Thomas and finish up? After a first-round war with the defending champion Blackhawks, a tough series against Hamhuis's old friends in Nashville, and a 5-game walkthrough of a formidable Sharks team in the Western Conference Final, the Canucks found the one question for which they had no answer: Thomas, the Bruins' star netminder. The portly 37-year-old Vezina winner concluded his improbable rise to glory at Vancouver's expense on and off the ice. Shipping just 8 goals in 7 games, the memory of the scrambling, scruffy Thomas must still haunt the brothers Sedin, who lost to 3 straight Cup champions from 2010 to 2012. Let's take a look at the biggest miss. It's hard to run down any runner-up. Winning 3 series is never easy, and taking Boston to Game 7 while so impotent on offense was a credit to the Canucks' ability to grind out tough wins. The next season, the resolve wasn't quite as apparent. Despite having locked up a second straight President's Trophy, Vancouver got blown away in 5 games by the 8th-seeded LA Kings. You may recall how well that year went for the Kings, who never faced elimination and didn't even see Game 6 until the Cup final. In retrospect, the Canucks could have had a similarly easy path. Instead, some combination of Jonathan Quick's heroics in goal, an injury to Daniel Sedin, and the offseason departure of Ehrhoff prevented Vancouver from breaking down a stubborn Kings defense. It would be 8 years before the Canucks won another series. Next up, we have the San Jose Sharks from 2016 to 2019. Let's take a look at why they should have won. The Sharks' section of this piece could encompass over a decade, from when the team traded for Joe Thornton in 2005 until his playoff swan song in the Bay Area in 2019. The newly elected Hall of Famers' excellence and longevity were such that San Jose was never too far away from contention while he was around. The Sharks missed the playoffs just twice during Thornton's tenure and won at least a series on 9 occasions. It's ironic then that their best chance at a Stanley Cup came just as Jumbo began to fade into the background. In desperate need of a refresh after the team's first postseason miss of the Thornton era, GM Doug Wilson replaced longtime coach Todd McClellan with former Devils' bench boss Pete DeBoer. In the 2015 offseason, Joe Pavelski, meanwhile, ended a captaincy carousel that had seen both 17-year man Patrick Marleau and Thornton stripped of the C over the previous six years. The leadership changes worked, and with late bloomer Brent Burns emerging as one of the most dangerous blue line scorers in the sport, and prime stars Pavelski and Logan Couture grabbing the torch from the old guard of Thornton and Marleau, San Jose seemed ready to end Chicago and LA's lengthy reign over the West. Let's take a look at why they didn't. The Sharks did end the Blackhawks Kings Cup streak by finally conquering their boogeyman, Jonathan Quick, who posted a .931 postseason save percentage against San Jose from 2013 to 2014. This time, Quick's postseason magic ran dry as Pavelski beat him 5 times in a short and sweet series. Postseason scoring leader Couture, 10 goals, 30 points in 24 games played the hero in the next round, a 7-game war against the Nashville Predators, before Pavelski exploded for another 4 tallies in the Western Conference Final against the St. Louis Blues, who had earlier vanquished Chicago. With the Kings and Blackhawks out of the way, semi-permanently as it would turn out, all that was left for the Sharks was to topple the Eastern Conference champion. The problem? That team happened to be the fired-up Penguins, who were under plenty of pressure themselves to win a second ring for Sidney Crosby. San Jose seemed to lose heart after going down 0-2 in overtime on the road, and Thornton, who racked up 82 regular season points and 18 postseason assists that year, never fully recovered from the futile 106-game grind. Let's take a look at their worst miss. 2016 was effectively the last hurrah for Thornton, at best a middle sixer for the remainder of his Sharks career, and Marleau, who signed with Toronto a year later, but the team itself had plenty of juice left. That made it all more frustrating when San Jose bowed out to McLennan and Connor McDavid's untested Oilers in 2017, and the expansion Vegas Golden Knights the next year. By 2018-2019, Pavelski was 34 and out of contract, and Wilson knew it was time to push his chips in for one last run at glory. The Sharks paid a small fortune in separate trades for Norris winner Erik Karlsson and power forward Evander Kane. And after an emotional comeback from 3-0 down against the Knights, it looked as though Wilson had built a team of destiny. Instead, the Cinderella St. Louis Blues took revenge for 2016 by shredding San Jose's bottom 10 defense. St. Louis went on to lock up their first Stanley Cup a few weeks later, and Pavelski would leave California as a free agent that summer. Pavelski's departure, Couture's injury woes, and the exorbitant trade and contract costs associated with Karlsson plunged the Sharks into a deep, dark rebuild that has only recently begun to show signs of life. So that is the article. Once again, not my takes. These are, what was his name? Let me scroll back up. These are Anthony Trudeau's from Daily Faceoff, his takes. So let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think of these takes. Do you guys agree with them? Do you guys disagree with them? Are there some teams that he may have not included on this list? Are there teams that shouldn't be on this list in your opinion? Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think. And as always, if you guys like this video, be sure to hit that like button. And if you want to stay up to date on all your Vancouver Canucks content, be sure to smash that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you don't miss a single video. You can find and interact with us on social media. You can find us on Facebook. Just search The Line Change to find our Facebook page. You can find us on Instagram at The Line Change. You can find us on X at Line Change Man. You can find us on TikTok at The TLC Podcast. You can also find us on Blue Sky at The Line Change. Feel free to give us a follow on all of our social media platforms. If you prefer an audio version of this podcast, you can find us on both Spotify and Apple Podcasts. On Spotify, feel free to give us a follow as well as rate and review us. It is, of course, greatly appreciated. But that's going to do it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And as always, let's go Canucks, and I'll see you guys in the next video.